It seems constantly that anamorphic lenses are getting cheaper and better at the same time. In the last few years, we've seen a rise of budget anamorphic lenses, but they all have some drawbacks. But now, in 2024, you can have a budget anamorphic lens for only $500 that actually delivers on what anamorphic promises. Barrel distortion, flares, the swirl, the bokeh. In today's video, we are going to talk about how the Sirui 1.25x anamorphic adapter with a certain set of DSLR lenses can deliver an image that is truly unrivaled by anything at its price.
The lens I'm using right now is a 28 millimeter. I found that that's about the way it goes, but it is pretty heavily focus breathed. So at infinity, there's actually no vignetting, despite the large amount of vignetting you're seeing now. So, lots of vignetting, but a nice flare. I've really found that this lens in particular, when I've used it before, it flares if you point it at a really like bright source. The sun works obviously, but flashlights do not. So that's kind of what this lens test is really about. It's how do the flares look? How wide can you really go? I find that with the focus breathing on this, you kind of get a 26 mil at this close focus distance. By the way, this is close focus. This is as close as you can get with this lens. It's around 2.5 feet, which is not great, not bad either, especially for an adapter. A lot of adapters don't close focus until, 3.5 feet. So I would say this performs, reasonably well. So I'm a big fan of this, and we're gonna get to our little spot today and test out each lens and see how it performs in flares, chromatic aberrations, barrel distortion, and close focus, things like that. Personally, I find the flares on this lens look best when stopped down to a 4 or 5.6. I don't like going much further than that because I still like to have some depth of field, even though it's a pretty wide lens. I try and maintain that, but it helps with the vignetting, definitely gets some better flares. So let's pop on the Helios next and see how that looks. Of course, we're on the Helios. It's super swirly. Let me get you a taste of that flare. Okay, so currently we're sitting wide open on the Nikon 50 millimeter 1.8G, and these are the lenses I'm talking about. This is the old DSLR set that just works with the anamorphic adapter. I use it all the time. Obviously, it looks kind of nuts. You haven't even seen the flares yet. The flares are what I really like most about this, and we're about to get into that, but the reason I like this is obviously it's super fast. And what I found is if you use a mist filter, it can kind of like hide a bit of the chromatic aberrations around leaves in particular, and it tends to lend to kind of a more orange chromatic aberration, which when you're dealing with, bright sources causing that, it's typically, viewed as halation. Most of the time you're not getting an ugly blue or green or magenta color. Let's talk about the fact that there just are chromatic aberrations in anamorphic glass. When you shoot anamorphic, the point is to get that fall off on the edge. The point is the waterfall bokeh. The point is the chromatic aberrations and the softness. I think a lot of people buy the cleanest, nicest glass. They slap a black pro mist filter on it, and then they open it completely wide open, and then go, ah, yes, there's a cinematic look. And then they look at, you know, the Blazar Remus series, or, you know, the Atlas Mercury, Atlas Orion, or even I've seen some wild clips of people trashing Panavision, you know, C series, T series, and G series lenses. And they're going, oh, it just doesn't look good. I want my film to look like Star Wars though. I like how those lenses look. I'm like, you're trashing the same lenses that you like. You just don't know that you like them because you don't understand how lenses work. I think that even though there's a lot of chromatic aberration in, you know, especially the Helios and a little bit in the Nikon, but less so when you stop down. I think even though there's, you know, that existing there, how often are you shooting straight up into trees? And how often do people care? I think, you know, in today's day and age, you know, people aren't pixel peeping the bokeh in the background unless they're a cinematographer or somebody who's just trying to bring you down. I think generally it's a great system that works. If, you know, you're gonna spend $8,000 on a lens and get a similar performance to spending $500 on an adapter, why spend the money for the lens? Obviously there are some, you know, technical and, you know, like logistical reasons you would. Having, you know, a set of cinema glass that works seamlessly obviously is a big difference, but I think for a lot of solo shooters, it would never make sense to buy those lenses, and it's too expensive to buy those lenses. I think as a solo shooter, you can just pop on and off the adapter to different lenses and get a really similar effect. Obviously, it's not gonna be the same. Obviously, you're not gonna have, you know, the same look. It is nicer glass, it's gonna perform better. But the point of this video is just to show you, you can get an adapter and have it work really, really. That is a yellow jacket flying over my lens. And there's one of my own. Evidently, I stashed my camera in a yellow jacket nest. I did not get stung, because I'm like that. Yellow jacket stings hurt so bad. Oh my gosh, and I'm so overexposed right now. This is horrible. I don't have a VND on. I'm literally just stopping down my lens. Hold up. Okay, back to where I was though. If the adapter works for a solo shooter, I don't see why you need the super high-end lenses. I'd say get these lenses, get these adapters. They work really, really good. I don't have a bad thing to say about them. If you don't like how it looks, get something else. But if you want really good, cheap anamorphic, get it. I think it looks great, especially if you have a 16:9 full frame sensor. It's just, I mean, you instantly get that 2:3:9 aspect ratio. There's no need to have more. You're just degrading your footage, you know, pointlessly at that point. So I'd say get it, man. It works great. All right, so right now we're headed back to the studio. We're gonna plug these files up into the computer, look at them, kind of compare them. I've used all of these lenses with the anamorphic adapter before, but I've never actually compared it side to side. You know, for some projects, I'm just not gonna stop down to a 5.6. And so I just wanted to test that lens to lens and kind of get those results on, you know, what is an anamorphic adapter good for, what lenses does it work for. I know a few things, like with the Helios, you're just gonna have chromatic aberrations and it's gonna be a little soft because the lens has chromatic aberrations and the lens is soft. With, you know, a wide lens, you're gonna have less chromatic aberrations because it's not punching into the anamorphic adapter as much, so you're okay to crop in that image in post. And with, you know, really tight lenses like the 85mm, you're gonna have chromatic aberrations because it's punching straight into the lens. But I also found with the Nikons, from today's research, at least, it looks like if you stop down to an f4, it cleans up very, very well. Obviously, we're gonna compare and contrast character, but overall, I'm really excited to compare these, and I think that a lot of you might be really interested in picking yourself up a set of, you know, these Nikon 1.8G series lenses and the anamorphic adapter. So, I was really disappointed with the Helios. After reviewing the footage, I found that the chromatic aberrations just stay. They don't go away even when stopped down to a 5.6. However, I'm pleasantly surprised with the Nikon lenses. I found that, you know, around a 2.8, they start to disappear real good, and around a 4, they're pretty much gone. However, you do lose a little bit of the anamorphic look, but that's not too big of a worry. Knowing that you can actually control your chromatic aberrations is a big plus. The 28mm had my favorite flares. They didn't look traditionally anamorphic, but they definitely looked pretty cool and unique in their own right, and I'm big on uniqueness, so that was a win for me. However, I found that I had to stop down to a 4 or 5.6 to achieve the look I wanted, which isn't too bad, because if I'm shooting as wide as a 28, I'm not really worried about depth of field at that point. I'm more worried about the angle than the depth of field. If I want depth of field, I'll shoot on the 50 or the 85.
Speaking of the 85, I found that it was really soft and had a lot of real bad chromatic aberrations wide open through 2.8. So I found 2.8's like the widest I would shoot open in that lens. It is not good at a fast aperture. However, at a 4, it cleans up real nicely. And anywhere past that, it looks really, really nice and retains that anamorphic bokeh, which I was pleasantly surprised with and didn't expect. I found that the flares got longer and kind of better, I guess. They were more traditional, at least the tighter focal length you went, and you probably noticed that between the 28 and the 85. They look drastically different, however, shared some similar qualities. So all in all, I think the 50 mil was my favorite performed, but the 28 had my favorite flares. The 50 had some wonderful characteristics and is really usable at almost any aperture. So I would say if you're looking to get a Blazar Remus or you want the Atlas Mercury look that I know is really popular right now, this is a great alternative on a budget. I'd say it's definitely doable if you only have, you know, a few $100s in your bank account. It's a great way to achieve that anamorphic look. So let me know what lens and what aperture was your favorite down in the comments below. And if you disagree with me on any of my thoughts, leave them down there too. I'm happy to discuss that. I always like hearing other people's opinions. Good luck.